Kyle Shanahan almost didn't make it to training camp this year. Not because of a contract dispute, not because of a front office fight, but because of a crash that put him in a hospital bed. The 49ers head coach spent the night before camp opened getting treated for injuries, serious enough to keep him off the practice field as the 2026 season begins. What happened on that road in Northern California, and what it now means for the man running San Francisco's franchise, is where this story starts. The date was July 14. Kyle Shanahan was driving near his home in Northern California when his vehicle collided with an SUV. Within minutes, paramedics were on scene, and the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers was on his way to a hospital. After the crash on the evening of July 14 in Palo Alto, paramedics took Shanahan to a local hospital where he spent much of that night before his release. That's not a fender bender. That's a man spending the night in a hospital bed, less than 2 weeks before he was supposed to be running training camp for a team with real Super Bowl aspirations. The injury list that came out afterward reads like something you'd expect from a player, not a coach standing on the sideline in a visor. Shanahan suffered 3 broken ribs, a broken hand, broken nose, sustained a severe concussion, and needed more than 40 stitches. After colliding with an SUV near his Northern California home, ESPN reported 3 broken ribs, a broken hand, a broken nose, 40 stitches, and a concussion serious enough that it's still affecting him weeks later. Here's the thing, none of this became public until the 49ers had no choice but to announce it. The San Francisco 49ers have officially reported to training camp, but will begin building the foundation for the 2026 campaign with their head coach limited. The team announced in a statement Saturday that Kyle Shanahan was involved in a car accident last week and suffered non-life-threatening injuries. The team had been sitting on this news for over a week, quietly managing Shanahan's recovery, while the football world had no idea their head coach had been in a hospital. When the statement finally dropped, it was carefully worded. The team said Coach Shanahan was involved in a car accident last week where he suffered non-life-threatening injuries, and that he'd participate in team activities on a limited basis at the start of training camp while he recovers, thanking first responders for their efforts. Notice what's missing from that statement. No mention of broken ribs, no mention of the concussion, no mention of the stitches. That all came out through ESPN's reporting, not the team's own words. So who's actually running the show while their head coach recovers? San Francisco 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan was involved in a car crash on July 14 and will be limited in his coaching duties during training camp. The team announced on Saturday. Assistant head coach Chris Forster and team coordinators will handle head coaching responsibilities in the interim. That's Forster, plus coordinators Clay Kubiak, Raheem Morris, and Brant Boyer, stepping in to fill a void nobody saw coming. Now here's where this story stops being about a broken nose and stitches and starts being about something a lot more serious, because a concussion doesn't heal on a schedule. And for a 46-year-old coach running one of the most demanding jobs in professional sports, that's the injury that actually worries people. Word of what happened to Shanahan spread fast once the 49ers went public, and the reaction started pouring in almost immediately. Not just from inside the building, but from around the entire NFL. This wasn't treated like a routine injury update. It was treated like news that shook people. General Manager John Lynch was the first to speak publicly, and he didn't sugarcoat how serious the moment was, even while trying to project calm. Lynch told reporters the team wouldn't blink, saying they felt well-equipped for something like this, and praised Shanahan as a tremendous developer of his staff, the kind of language you use when you're trying to convince a room full of reporters, and maybe yourself, that everything's under control. But Lynch also confirmed the part that mattered most medically. Niners general manager John Lynch said Shanahan sustained a concussion, along with a broken nose, broken ribs, and an injured hand. He didn't stop there either, adding that Kyle is doing good. Lynch said Saturday, he's got some bumps and bruises. He did suffer a concussion in the accident, has some lingering effects from that concussion. That phrase, lingering effects, is the one that should stop you in your tracks. Concussions aren't ribs. You can't just tape them up and send a guy back onto the field or into the coach's booth. Lynch added that while there is no defined concussion protocol for staff members, Shanahan will follow a similar process to what players go through in order to get clearance to return to work full-time. Think about that for a second. The head coach of an NFL franchise is now going through the same return-to-play steps as a linebacker who just took a helmet-to-helmet hit. Then came the reaction from outside the building, and it came from a man who knows Shanahan better than almost anyone else across the league, Sean McVay, the Rams head coach and one of Shanahan's closest friends in football. didn't hold back on how much this rattled him. McVay told reporters that most importantly, he was thankful Shanahan and the other driver were both okay, and that perspective is everything. The kind of thing coaches talk about constantly, he said, because everybody goes through different things. Coming from a rival head coach, in the middle of the two franchises' ongoing battle for the NFC West, that's not just a courtesy quote. That's real concern. But the reaction that maybe says the most about how the locker room actually feels came from inside the building, from a player, not an executive. Fred Warner, San Francisco's all-pro linebacker and one of the most respected voices on the roster, reached out to Shanahan almost immediately. Lynch relayed exactly what Warner told his head coach, saying Warner got back to Shanahan right away with a simple message, that they've got this, that Shanahan should trust them. Lynch didn't stop with Warner either. He name-checked the Trent Williams, the Kyle Juszczyks, the Fred Warners, Christian McCaffreys, Brock Purdy's. The core of veteran leadership Lynch is leaning on to hold the team together while its head coach recovers. That's three completely different corners of the football world. The front office, a rival head coach, and the locker room itself, all reacting to the same piece of news within the same 48 hours. And all three landed on the same underlying message. This was serious, and it scared people. The scene itself, once details emerged, painted a picture of just how close this could have gone another way. The two-car accident happened on July 14 in Palo Alto, leading to Shanahan being taken to the hospital. The other driver was not hospitalized. Police were clear that this wasn't a case of reckless behavior behind the wheel. Palo Alto Police Lieutenant Nicholas Martinez said there was no evidence that either driver was impaired and that both cooperated with police. No one was cited in the collision, no charges, no blame assigned. Just two people who happened to collide, and one of them happened to be the head coach of an NFL franchise about to open camp. Let's break down exactly what Shanahan is dealing with, because car accident doesn't do justice to what actually happened to his body. Start with the ribs. 3 of them broken. If you've ever cracked even one rib, you know that every breath hurts, every cough is agony, and something as simple as getting out of bed becomes a calculated operation. Now multiply that by 3 and picture standing on a practice field in the July heat for hours, barking out play calls, needing to move fast enough to correct a lineman's footwork, or sprint over to check on a player who just went down. Then there's the hand. A broken hand for most people means an inconvenience. No gripping, no writing, careful movements for weeks. For an NFL head coach, the hand is part of how you communicate on the sideline, how you signal, how you hold a play sheet during a game. It's not life-altering, but it's one more thing standing between Shanahan and a normal workday. The nose and the stitches are the most visible parts of this story, the kind of injury that shows up in every photo taken of him for the next month. He suffered a broken nose, 3 broken ribs, a broken hand, and a severe concussion. He also needed over 40 stitches in his face. 40 stitches is not a small cut. That's the kind of wound that comes from real impact, real force, the kind of collision that leaves a permanent reminder on someone's face. But it's the concussion that towers over everything else on that list, because it's the one injury that doesn't respond to time the way a broken bone does. Broken ribs heal in 6 to 8 weeks, give or take. A broken hand, similar timeline. But a brain that's still sending out symptoms doesn't follow a calendar, and that's exactly the situation Shanahan is in right now. Shanahan is recovering well from many of the injuries, though he still has lingering concussion symptoms. General Manager John Lynch said Saturday, "That's the sentence that should worry anyone paying attention. Every other injury on the list has a projected healing window. The concussion doesn't. It clears when it clears, and no amount of wanting to be back on the practice field speeds that up." Given that he suffered a concussion, Shanahan will not be cleared to return to team activities until his symptoms clear. That's a hard stop, not a soft target date, not a "we're hoping." A hard stop that depends entirely on how his brain responds to rest, to light, to physical exertion, to stress. All the things a training camp is built out of. And training camp, by the way, is not a gentle environment to be easing back into after a head injury. It's heat, it's noise, it's constant decision-making. It's 12-hour days of full sensory overload. Every single element of a typical Shanahan camp schedule is exactly the kind of environment doctors tell concussion patients to avoid. That's why the team is handling his return the way they would with a player. Lynch said there is no defined concussion protocol for staff members, but Shanahan will follow a similar process to what players go through in order to get clearance to return to work full-time. Step by step, symptom-free rest, then controlled activity, then full clearance. With doctors, not coaches, making the call on when he's ready. With Shanahan sidelined from full duty, the 49ers had to answer a question no one wants to face 2 weeks before camp. Who runs the building when the man who runs everything can't be there at full strength? The answer starts with Chris Forster. He's not new to this organization or to stepping up under pressure. He spent years as the offensive line coach and assistant head coach, someone who knows Shanahan's scheme inside and out. Assistant head coach Chris Forster and the team coordinators will handle the bulk of the head coach duties while Shanahan recuperates. He's not walking in cold. He's walking in as someone who spent years next to Shanahan, absorbing how this offense is built and how this program is run. But it's not a one-man job, it's a group effort, and Lynch made sure to spell that out. Assistant head coach Chris Forster will assume some of Shanahan's duties until he returns, though Lynch said it will be a group effort to fill in for Shanahan. That means defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, special teams coordinator Brant Boyer, and offensive assistant Clay Kubiak are all sharing pieces of a job that's usually concentrated in one person's hands. Think about what that actually looks like on the ground. Training camp practices run on scripts that Shanahan writes himself, built around a system he's refined for a decade. Now those scripts, those installs, those in-the-moment adjustments have to run through a committee instead of one voice. That's not a small logistical wrinkle. That's a fundamental shift in how a 49ers practice operates, right as the team tries to build the timing and continuity that camp exists to create. And it's happening at the worst possible time on the calendar. This isn't camp with a quiet non-conference opener waiting at the end of it. San Francisco reported for training camp Saturday as it begins its season in Australia against the Los Angeles Rams on Thursday, Sept. 10. An international trip, a short week, a rival building revenge off last season, all bearing down on a team that's simultaneously trying to figure out its coaching hierarchy without its actual head coach fully in the building. Lynch, to his credit, tried to frame the disruption as manageable rather than catastrophic, pointing to the depth of the staff and the experience in the locker room as reasons the team wouldn't lose stride. He leaned hard into that same message across every interview he gave that Saturday, repeating that the team wasn't going to blink and that they were built for exactly this kind of moment. It's the kind of talking point a GM has to lean on publicly. Whether it holds up once padded practices start and installs get more complex is a different question entirely. There's also the matter of what limited actually means in practice day to day. With San Francisco's first training camp practice on Sunday, Shanahan will be around the team some and may even be on the practice field, but will not have his usual level of involvement, meaning he's not vanishing entirely. He's just not the Kyle Shanahan barking calls from the middle of the field for 6 hours a day. He'll be present in fragments, in whatever doses his doctors are comfortable allowing, and everyone around him will be building the practice plan around those fragments. That's the reality of camp right now in Santa Clara. A team trying to install a system for a Super Bowl run, guided by a rotating cast of assistants standing in for the one man whose voice usually fills every rep. So where does this actually leave Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers heading into the season? The team has been careful not to put a hard date on his full return. And for good reason. You can't schedule a concussion recovery the way you schedule a joint practice. Lynch didn't give a timeline for Shanahan's return, but did say the team anticipates he will be back well before the season opener in Australia against the Rams. That's the target everyone's working toward, but it's a target built on hope and medical progress, not a locked date on a calendar. Lynch has repeated in multiple settings that he doesn't expect Shanahan to miss that opener, but doesn't expect is doing a lot of work in that sentence. It's optimism, not a guarantee, and anyone who's watched an NFL concussion recovery play out knows those timelines can shift overnight depending on how a person responds to physical or mental exertion. What's remarkable watching this unfold is how the response from around the building has been less about panic and more about closing ranks. The messages from Warner, from the veteran core Lynch named, from a rival coach like McVay who picked up the phone to check in personally. All of it paints a picture of a program that, for all its recent injury history with players like Bosa, Purdy, Warner, and Kittle, has now watched that same misfortune reach its own head coach. News of Shanahan's car collision comes after a season that saw star players Nick Bosa, Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, and George Kittle all missed notable time with serious injuries. The man who's had to manage all of those absences from the sideline is now, for the first time, the one on the injury report. There's something almost poetic, in a grim way, about that. Shanahan has spent years standing at podiums, delivering injury updates about his players, learning to compartmentalize bad news so the team could move forward. Now the building is doing that same thing for him, delivering updates, setting expectations, trying to project calm while a concussion works its way out of his system on its own schedule. For now, the story is still being written day by day. Practices are underway in Santa Clara. Forrester and the coordinators are running install. Shanahan is somewhere between the sideline and the recovery room, showing up in whatever capacity his doctors will clear, watching a program he spent a decade building try to hold its shape without him standing in the middle of it. The next real update on his condition, whether he's cleared for a joint practice, whether the concussion symptoms fade before the trip to Australia, is the one that will tell the rest of this story. Until then, the 49ers keep working, and Kyle Shanahan keeps healing. One cleared